Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session on Ignite and Thrive, empowering women entrepreneurs. First of all, a very warm welcome to all of you joining us. We know how busy this season is, and we're so thrilled to be able to spend this hour in conversation together. You are in for a treat, I promise you today. My name is Nicola Corzine, and I have the honor of being the Executive Director and CEO of the Nasdaq Entrepreneurial Center. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. And if you don't know, the Center is a nonprofit that is building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by empowering inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. All of the work that we do is free and provided thanks to the generosity of our incredible funders, our donors, and our foundations that we are fortunate to partner with. So please make sure you have a chance to check out all the support that they offer above and beyond the support to our organization each and every day. Now, the Nasdaq Center provides programs, resources, and mentorship to entrepreneurs around the world. We just recently passed 102,000 entrepreneurs that we're fortunate to learn from, work with, and support each and every day. And all of this insight is provided thanks to the requests and the asks that you all have being in market today in this very challenging time. So as we launch a poll in a few minutes, as you'll hear me say, and also for the surveys that we're going to be asking you to complete, our thanks and appreciation in advance. It really does allow us to get smarter around the needs that you have and able to develop and design the programs that you would like us to. Couple of quick housekeeping rules. Those are always good before we get started. First, we want to hear where you're dialing in from today or joining us from. So let us know where you are in chat. Secondly, we are going to be opening up for live Q&A today. So there's that wonderful feature and function that I know all of you know all too well these days. Make sure you pop your questions into the Q&A and we'll try to cover just as many as we can with our incredible guest as we go through the conversation today. Before we get started, though, I did reference and mention that we're going to ask you a couple of quick questions. So, Anna, I'm going to invite you to launch that first poll for us today. Every question always starts with how you're actually doing as entrepreneurs this year, this market, this moment. Take a pause and just sort of reflect with us. How are you feeling? If you can let us know, that will be most helpful. And also to assure you and let you know that you're not alone with the challenges and the times as you feel optimistic, or if you're also going through a period of uncertainty and just feeling like you're hanging in there right now. Wherever you are, we know it's a hard place to be, especially in the life of an entrepreneur and in the journey that you're on. So thank you for your honesty and your transparency. The center does provide a number of wellness and programs that allow our entrepreneurs to hopefully have a chance to rise and thrive, just like our topic for today. Good to know that a number of you are feeling optimistic, but equally a variety on the anxious level as well. All right, let's launch that next poll. This one is what's keeping you up at night. As entrepreneurs, we do hope that you are sleeping fairly well through the night. However, we're also appreciative of the fact that there are a number of things on your mind at any one time. As I mentioned earlier, this allows us to dive deeper into the programs that you'll see coming up in January and February. So if you can share with us whether it's finance, sales, marketing, scaling, pivoting, team dynamics, or just hanging in there and surviving right now, this will allow our incredible program team at the center to go source the best and the brightest and make sure that the resources and courses and classes that we're offering in the early part of the new year are going to be able to address those issues. So thank you once again for your honesty, for sharing what those are. Let's go ahead and see where people are right now. Not surprisingly, a lot in the finance side of the house, and equally seeing some surviving and marketing and sales continue to drive forward. Thank you so much for that, Anna. All right. Well, now the fun part. I get to introduce our incredible guest today. I am really delighted to welcome a longtime friend, a mentor, advocate of entrepreneurs worldwide. Ayris T is joining us. She is the SVP of Social Responsibility and Global Initiatives at the Nareit Foundation, and they have been a longtime supporter as well of the Center. Nareit's foundation's Dividends Through Diversity grant program, which we are the beneficiary of. We're going to be talking about some of the tool and some of the opportunities that have emerged through that. But it is making possible for us a brand new tool that those of you joining today are going to be the first lookers at that tool when we launch it in just a little bit of time. Happy holidays and you're welcome. But I'm so thrilled to welcome Ayris, again, longtime friend and dear champion. Ayris, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. Nareit has an incredible mission. If this is the first time that you're hearing about this amazing organization, Their vision is really to ensure that everyone, and we really do mean everyone has the opportunity to benefit from real estate investment, be it people, businesses, or communities. I know that's a personal passion and pursuit of Ayris as well. So Ayris, welcome. Before I go into it, I want to invite you to share a little bit about your amazing background. I've had the honor of knowing you for a few years now, but not everyone may. So why don't we start with that, and then we'll dig into our conversation today.
You know what? Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. And I was ready to talk about everything else but myself. I think
Oh, sorry, I'm throwing you there. We're going to start with you.
Okay. So let me say, I'm currently the Senior Vice President of Social Responsibility and Global Initiatives with Nareit. Talk more about who Nareit is. And it's interesting because people are often asking me, like, how did you get to this role of being at this intersection of, philanthropy and strategic partnerships and focusing on global initiatives, particularly for commercial real estate industry? And I think, like many people, I say my trajectory was not linear. I came into the professional world thinking I was going to be a reporter, an anchor woman on the news, and I kind of started in that space, went into corporate communications, and that was really where I got introduced to entrepreneurs and small business owners. I was working for a company that registered businesses around the world, and we would often get inquiries from small businesses who want our support. But by the time we put together packages and we talked to them about what our offerings were, they couldn't afford our services. And so what that meant was their abilities to go into new markets legally, right, being registered companies, was highly limited. And so I stepped back and I said, I'm pretty unfulfilled here doing corporate communications and business development. Let me think about how I can get onto the public policy, the advocacy side to make sure that resources are being put into the hands of small businesses. So my very first job was with Mayor Bart Peterson in Indianapolis to scale a new initiative that he had called Access to Capital. And I'm about to age myself because that was like 20 something years ago. But then here we are, right? More than 2 decades later, however, still having the same conversations as it relates to entrepreneurs. And so working with Mayor Peterson, I got a great introduction into what it was by way of legislation, by way of public-private partnerships, by way of community engagement and trust building to identify the best resources and opportunities to support entrepreneurs. And so throughout the years, I don't know, I think I've worked under 8 different mayors and administrations. I've been the vice president of economic growth and jobs in Chicago. I've ran agencies here in DC government. I've run a nonprofit. And what most people don't know, and then I'm going to stop, that I am also a founder. I'm an entrepreneur and ended up in that space out of necessity several years ago. But like many who are currently in this journey, I understand what it's like to try to sustain your business, scale your business, grow your business while you're also running that business. So this is it's personal, it's professional, and I'm just happy to be here.
Oh, Ayris, see now, if you didn't already know how perfect this conversation is going to be, I hope you better understand the incredible opportunity we have to learn from you today. So I'm gonna start with, I think, an inspiring conversation. I feel like we all want to hear the inspiring conversations that are going on behind the scenes. And you had one just recently, I understand, from and with your CEO. And he actually had the chance to emphasize that the core of Nareit's Foundation's philanthropic mission is really about fostering education and creating opportunities. Just those opportunities that you've reflected are so important in your own journey and in the work of policy and advocacy, and really ensuring that there's success and support for the small businesses, the all businesses of America and beyond. And I know that really focusing on making the real estate investment industry more visible, more accessible, and more inclusive is very important to him and to you. So let's start with the introduction of the work of Nareit for those that may not know it yet and need more than just the one-liner that I threw at them very early on. Can you share what a REIT is and also expand on how the foundation is really bringing this vision to life, particularly through the initiatives like you funded for us, the Milestone Index project?
So I love the second part of this question about what is a REIT. And I went back and forth today about how honest I was going to be with the audience. Because I'm not going to lie, before taking on this role at Nareit, I had never even heard of a REIT. I was like, what is a REIT? I've worked with many commercial real estate developers and companies throughout my career, but none of them were like, hey, we're a REIT, right? They were just another developer, they're another CRE firm. And so in stepping back, I think what is really amazing about REITs is that despite over 170 million, and I'm saying 170 million Americans already being REIT investors through their 401k, their IRAs, or their pension plans, or some other investment fund, many don't know what a REIT is as well. And so the fact that you, as an investor in a 401k or some other kind of mutual fund, are already actively involved in this industry is something that we want everyone to be aware of, right? And so not just aware of the fact that they may already be investing, and if they're not, there's opportunities for them to, but it's also a great industry in which to work. It's a great industry because it's over $4 trillion worth of gross assets, a great industry to do business with. And we're going to talk more about that today. But REITs, just like, I would say any other type of, company stock or a mutual fund or an EFT, you can make those investments yourself, right? And so you can go to market and become an investor in real estate without having the risk of, owning and managing and financing that yourself and having great exposure to debt. We understand how expensive capital is. We understand how complicated real estate is. But through REITs, just like any other form of stock, publicly traded, you can make those investments and reap those benefits and returns. And so Nareit represents companies that are REITs and publicly traded commercial real estate here in the US, but also with assets globally around the world.
Wow. Wow. That's such an impressive number. And I think it does sort of humanize the fact that we've all got some opportunity to have exposure into that space, even if it does feel, so far stretched from many of our entrepreneurs on a daily basis. That's wonderful. And so to maybe just double click a little bit into Nareit Foundation. So the mission of the foundation then is to help educate and raise more awareness and access to this space. What are some of the initiatives that have come forward through the foundation, which I know you had the honor of being sort of the inaugural leader really around some of those priorities with the board and the CEO, obviously.
Yeah, and so, I think we take very seriously our role at Nareit in increasing visibility and increasing opportunity for our members, right? So there's a lot of advocacy and outreach that we do to make sure that the congressional members are aware of the great benefits and impact of our members. We do a lot to make sure that the capacity of our members is always increased and ways to have these peer exchanges and knowledge exchange. But one of our newer kind of ventures has been leveraging our foundation to go deeper within community, right? And identifying great organizations like yours to help us succeed and execute on this big vision of increasing that visibility, of increasing the awareness and having greater connections. And it really, if I'm being totally transparent, it wasn't just Nareit proper that was driving this. It was from the commitment and the push and the challenge of our CEOs, of the members that we represent. We have a council of just about 30 CEOs who, in addition to our board for the foundation board, in addition to the board of Nareit, who come together and share with us where they see opportunities, where they have barriers, where they see challenges. And they said, you have a foundation. Let's leverage this foundation through a collective approach and put resources back into organizations who are doing this work on the front line. And so we have 3 priority areas where we're supporting workforce development, talent development, so that we can attract more people at every single level from entry to board into the industry. We are really focused, as you know, on supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs so that they can be more competitive, so they can be more confident and ready to possibly procure and support our members. And then recently we've added a 3rd vertical around understanding investing in REITs and financial management, financial literacy, all with the goal of making sure that either of these three verticals help you support generational wealth building, prosperity, and continue to close some of these parities that exist economically.
Ah, we love that. That's such incredible work and such incredible leadership. And speaking of which, you as a leader and as an entrepreneur yourself, you've spent so much of your time and your career really supporting women entrepreneurs. And obviously, the title today is around inspiring and igniting our amazing women entrepreneurs, the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurial success in America. What has all your past experiences taught you as you think about informing your priority strategy and your approach to really accelerating women business owners in the services sector, which of course is not only real estate, but broadly speaking, so many of the women entrepreneurs that we have in our community and across the US today? What is it informing you, and what advice would you have around that?
So I shared, a lot of this is personal. And so some days I have to take the personal out and really make sure that I'm focusing on the data, right? So, but I think as we're looking at how we solve for these barriers and these challenges that we face, that we have to take into account, though, both the qualitative and the quantitative. Because, I think about some organizations that I've run or ran in the past or supported in the past, that was working specifically with women entrepreneurs. And prior to going into those roles, I was very much focused on, well, here's what the data says around accessing capital. Here's what the data says around revenue. Here's what the data says around whatever the data says. And I got to have more conversation with women and then being in it myself. And there were some things that were surfacing that we didn't talk about, such as confidence, right?
Mhm.
And I remember one time speaking with a funder, and they said, "You want me to give you money to work with women entrepreneurs around increasing their confidence?" They didn't quite get that, right? And particularly when you think about an industry like real estate or finance or IT, where it's so male dominated. And then you start throwing in being a woman and a woman of color, there could be some things that make you want to, kind of stand back, right? You're getting into some very uncomfortable spaces or some very unusual spaces. And so what I try to do now is two things. One is relying on the quantitative and the qualitative, but also really disaggregating even the quantitative data. Because
Mhm.
a woman, and I think we're going to get into this a little later, a woman, just because you're a woman and you're an entrepreneur, it is not monolithic, right? And so when you start looking at businesses that are at like a zero, maybe you're not revenue generating yet, you're still pre-revenue generating. In
Aspiring to
there,
get to the revenue stage. I got you.
right?
Yeah.
Right? But you're not quite revenue generating, but maybe you're up to 75,000 or 100,000, and you may be in professional services versus someone who's in retail. I mean, all of these needs can be very different.
Yeah.
And so it really does require those of us who are in this ecosystem and who are providing support to not be lazy. I hate to say it. We got to do the work and be very bespoke around
Yeah.
our approaches, right? And so that's where I think the kind of quantitative data helps support how you look at breaking down the types of tools, products, legislation, et cetera, to meet different demographics, even within this demographic. The
Mhm.
other piece, though, I would say is not being afraid to figure out ways to support based on qualitative data and conversations and just pure observations. And so if confidence is something that we know, I love someone just said humanizing the data, right? If confidence is something that we know needs to be addressed, then let's address that. If
Yeah.
we know that breaking down barriers to get women into rooms that they don't traditionally have access to, then let's do that. And maybe you don't see an immediate return on that, but over time, you start to see a shift. And so as I go through the approaches and the strategies that I try to design, support, and or invest, whichever one of those lanes I'm in, I personally try not to be so prescriptive.
Mm.
One of the things that I do value, and I have to go on record with Nareit, is the flexibility to be that. Our CEO some days I'm like, wow, this is so, it's almost uncomfortable to be in an environment that allows you to just really freely create as you go along based on the needs of your grantees, your partners, or the environment.
Well, that dynamic environment is so critical for entrepreneurs, as you've already beautifully articulated today. And I think it kind of teases up a little bit nicely to the support that you've enabled and fostered through our Milestone Index. As a highlight reel for our founders that haven't yet seen it, because it's not yet live in a large beta environment yet, this really appreciated the fact that the answers are out there for everyone, but the challenge is being able to be invited into that place in that space where entrepreneurs who have overcome barriers, who have overcome obstacles, can share and reflect what it was in retrospect that may have made the most important difference to them being able to achieve that, and to share that knowledge, to pay it forward, an approach that manifests itself every day at the center with our entrepreneurs who give so freely and so generously to one another in their learnings. But it's hard to know what to do and in what order to do it. So, as a leader working with so many great leaders across your industry, how do you approach learning through these kind of lanes and learning when the stakes are so high, right? They're so high because if you get it wrong, it is, as you said, it's so personal, and it's the person's finances, the confidence, the opportunity to see oneself as an entrepreneur that really we're talking about at the end of the day, knowing entrepreneurs have so many unique pressures that they're faced with all the time. So how do you approach that learning, and what are your thoughts around how to achieve insights that matter so much?
Learning, learning, learning. I was sharing with someone recently that I have an insatiable appetite. Everything in life. I'm like, it's just, I'm never satisfied, and I'm not difficult. And I can't be pleased, but I'm just never satisfied with where I'm at. Like, and I mean it not in a bad way, right? Like in a desirable way of just wanting to know more, see more, experience more. And I feel like with every single opportunity, I get into places and I go, wow, I didn't know this even existed, right? This is great. And now I want to know what's beyond that. So
Yeah.
learning for me, as a leader, as a business, executive, it's a continuous ongoing process. And one of the things that I often say is you have to stay in that, thank you, curious state, as someone just put in the chat, because what you learn today, I mean, as soon as we get off this webinar, information is old. It's new things are coming out. And this next generation, my goodness, I mean, they are creating and cranking and evolving at such a rate so young, it's hard to keep up, right? Particularly when you start infusing technology. And so when you're in really high stakes and high stake environments, which, dealing with companies of this magnitude, dealing with CEOs of this magnitude, and having worked with so many elected officials, it's super critical that I'm ahead. I always say you can't lead from behind. And so that I have to be ahead with the information that I receive. And as entrepreneurs, it's the same applies, because these mistakes or not having the information can have detrimental financial impact, right? They can have in a good way or a bad way. And so some of the things that I try to do, particularly in this current environment, where I say everyone is an expert because of social media, and I think this kind of goes back to my days of journalism, is really thinking about the source. So if you're looking to learn and you're looking to expand, you want to make sure that you're learning from the best. You want to make sure that you're learning from credible sources. You want to make sure that you're affiliated with organizations that have validity, or leaders who have validity and credibility, or sources that are producing information, so that you're not getting all of this junk. I'm sorry, it's a lot of people just selling pipe dreams out there, and folks are falling for it. And so you really got to think about who the source is. The other is, I talked about data. I was in a meeting this morning with my comms team, and they were giving me some KPI. They said, you love data. I do. I mean, you can't make decisions. I mean, you can, But you can't make informed decisions without credible data to base it off of. So it's looking and being able to identify patterns and commonality amongst information from your demographic, from your partners, so that you can begin to create strategies and respond accordingly. And then the other I would just say is, as women, we have a certain level of intuition.
Yeah.
And I still rely and I try to do certain practices that allow me to stay in alignment and to feel comfortable with listening to and following and applying my intuition to all of the real data and credible sources that I'm pulling from. So I think that that's something that we don't talk enough about or we try to shy away from. And I'm constantly encouraging women, people to really lean into your intuition. Like if it doesn't feel good, there's probably a reason why it doesn't feel good. If it feels great and exciting, there's probably a reason why it feels great and exciting. Lean into that and apply that to your learning process.
I love that lean in recommendation and strong encouragement. It's so important. We always say at the center, the ABC that really matters is always be curious, even though I think our entrepreneurs are often nurtured towards always be closing. But the true business defensibility is, as you've talked about, Ayris, the ability for our entrepreneurs to see around corners that others can't. That's what makes startups nimble. That's what makes entrepreneurs persist in difficult times. And so being able to trust that intuition, listen to those that have learned the hard knocks and also are sharing for others. So important. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Listen to those who have learned. I was like, whoa, I get so many inquiries and reach outs now on LinkedIn's or if I'm doing panels or conversations. And I said, okay, I guess I'm at that stage now.
In the best of ways, in the best of ways.
Of giving it out, as opposed to pulling it. So
I
yeah.
know, I love it. I love it. I mean, so you've already talked about the importance of data, and we love our data as well. All data, this data, our data, the data that our entrepreneurs trust us with. What are the fascinating findings that honestly, between you and I would not have been able to see at such a measured mark as what showed up for our data that informed this tool was that after surveying hundreds of women business owners below $500,000 in revenue, the most important thing that emerged was hitting specific milestones that were critical to their success on a quarterly basis or an annual basis. But those business owners that were moving from $500,000 and above, the most important thing that other business owners reflected made a difference to them was holding true to their vision. And that held true across all services, across the real estate sector, everywhere. Based on your experience, do you see that kind of pattern resonate with what you've observed in the industry? And, why or why not, I guess?
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. I mean, think about it, right? I think it's a pretty much applicable across life.
Yeah.
The more resources you have, almost the more freedom you have to put that time and energy that often goes into survival mode,
Yes.
right? And more to of a thriving type of uh, environment or a thriving type of a mindset. And so, as I think about businesses that are under $500,000, a lot of those founders, I'm certain, are spending a lot of their time, I would say, like working in their business as opposed
Yeah.
to working on the business. I know we've all heard that many times. And it's a certain level of like scrappiness, right? That's going into those entrepreneurs doing what it takes to just keep the business going. They're the ones doing the work. They are the expert usually. They are the service provider. They're doing all the things.
Yeah.
And those skills that are needed to do that don't necessarily go away once you hit this 500,000 and above mark,
Yeah.
but you're certainly thinking about the business in a different kind of way. And now that you've got a little revenue coming in at a higher rate, you're able to bring on support, right? And now you are able to focus on delegation. You're focused more on being the leader. You're focused more on the business development.
Mm.
So that does allow you to, because it's all about that North Star, to align and drive and show up in a different kind of way. And so when I think about, particularly within this industry, an example that might come to mind for me is if you are if you're focused on real estate and say you're under $500,000, right? You're really thinking about how you're securing business deals, how you're building that portfolio. But once you get above 500,000, you're probably thinking more about your market positioning. You're thinking more about how you're bringing investors to the table and that long-term investment strategy and who your institutional partners are. So it definitely, and I think that's important too, though, because what they say, what got you here won't get you there. And for those founders to be successful once they hit that milestone, it really requires a different way in terms of how you show up and how you shift your leadership abilities and your skills. And even that, listen, I'm terrible. I'm not gonna lie. Delegation is not my ministry. Work on, I know a lot of what has to happen, but getting it down and project managing and laying it out so my team can, so I have to show up and transition differently too. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah. I love how you reflected on the leadership piece, because I do think over time the entrepreneurial journey takes you in a variety of different directions. But one of the most important ones, obviously, you show this in the biggest of ways, is being able to encourage and invite the leader within the team, the leader within the community, the leader within the market to see how they can participate and how they want to join you in that journey, right? That passion that is emulating in the biggest of ways across the screen right now from you, who you are, what you stand for, is what draws people into saying, I've got to be a part of this.
Yeah.
How can I get involved? And I think that's when the magic happens, right?
That is fair. Hold on, I'm chuckling. I'm looking at this chat. I love this group here. Like, this is one of the most engaged webinars ever. And someone said, if $500,000 is the mark, I got work to do. And I because even as you were saying it, I was like, on average, the women entrepreneurs from a revenue standpoint usually generate, around between 25, maybe $40,000. And so I was like, whoa, 500,000, but that's, and it's crazy because it's still a small business, but for so many women, like that's astronomical. And that to me starts to speak a little bit to some of these disparities that we see amongst women entrepreneurs and founders and businesses, men entrepreneur founders and businesses. And again, you start throwing in, you throw in race, you throw in geographic location, you throw in the type of sector or industry you're supporting. It is really, it really fluctuates, which goes back to why it's so important to have like these bespoke approaches to moving these tools and resources forward.
Yeah.
I want to get to the 500,000 mark with my business too.
I get that. I mean, I think it is so funny, even as we've talked in the past, right, about the definition of small business. And I think most of our small businesses would be like, if only, from like a government definition perspective, if only. One of the other things that we didn't talk about, but I know is so inspiring for the women entrepreneurs. And for those of you who don't know the center, the majority of our entrepreneurs are women entrepreneurs. Hey, you guys rock. Is the fact that our women entrepreneurs are not only building businesses that really matter and are resonant in community, but they're also building a number of businesses that allow them to pursue the entrepreneurial lifestyle. So specifically within our data, we've seen that it's not uncommon for our women entrepreneurs to be starting 3 businesses. And the origin story of the 3 is that one is actually paying the bills. One is their passion project, and one is a nonprofit, or one is deeply tied into the community that they care so much about. And the fuel from the first is what enables the other 2 to live, to survive, and in the coming months and years to thrive. And I know, back to that importance of Nareit and the foundation's commitment to community, you see that too, right? You see the importance of how much community drives the entrepreneurial pursuit and why our founders, especially our women entrepreneurs, are building in the first place. So here's to $500,000, and hopefully all of us getting there soon. I completely understand. I completely appreciate that. All right, now Speaking of stakeholders, speaking of community, we really believe that one day this tool is going to be a valuable tool for educators, for investors, for policymakers, for everyone to just have more visibility into the needs and the opportunities to support women entrepreneurs in the services space. And I know Nareit too takes a very ecosystem-driven approach to supporting women business owners. How are some of the examples that you would share around how you engage stakeholders across your business to support these women business owners?
Yeah, so we certainly take an ecosystem and a collective impact approach, even from like I start with our philanthropy. Our dividends through diversity grant program. It was a collective. Yeah, Nareit made a contribution, but our members stepped up and they made financial contributions too, to make sure that we can go even, deeper and bigger with regards to our investments across the country to organizations like yours. And I think being that we are a membership-based organization, a trade association, we're representing this mass industry, it really, I don't want to say it, yeah, it drives us to want to make sure that we're taking this broader approach beyond what we can just do by ourselves. So first and foremost, we have an initiative called CREDS, which is our Commercial Real Estate Diverse Suppliers Initiative. We do this in conjunction with 6 other commercial real estate trade associations, which is wonderful. We are collectively looking at how we bring our members together to have this ecosystem approach to supplier diversity and engaging more women entrepreneurs, more entrepreneurs of color, more veterans, et cetera, into this supply chain for our members. And that it's a major lift. We've had 25 members so far who've signed up to be part of this, and that means that they want to receive educational offerings. They're looking for best practices and tools. We're giving them additional resources. We're helping them look at their spend data. We're helping them come up with strategies to be more inclusive and expansive. So that's one way that we are looking to support women entrepreneurs coming into this industry through procurement opportunities. We're wanting to make sure that we're increasing, again, the education of our members so that they don't rely on us alone, but go back to your companies and figure out ways to further deploy at your hyper local levels. We're investing in, again, organizations like yours who support women entrepreneurs. We're constantly asking, how can we be part of conversations like this to raise visibility and drive more connections? And then I would say the last piece of that is, we constantly look at opportunities to bring women into the fold because, we are businesses in and of ourselves. And so we do a lot of conferences, we do a lot of convenings, we have speakers, we have event planners, so there's so many different services and sources that we try to make sure that we take an intentional approach to expand opportunity.
The best. And you're doing it. You're doing it here today, and you've been doing it since forever, from all that I've known with you. All right, friends, I've got a couple more questions for Ayris. But this is your reminder. Drop those questions into the chat. We're going to try to get to as many. And thank you for those of you who shared some in advance too. We'll be referencing those as we get into the live Q&A here in just a minute. All right, up next for you, Ayris. The real estate industry, as you've kind of already articulated gently and kindly, it's not necessarily the most woman-led first industry in the world.
Fair.
And, some might say that there have been barriers that have been present for entry for women, especially minority women. So where do you see these barriers, glass half full, being overcome right now? And what more would you say is needed? How do we all make a difference to ensuring that that's not the story that's told generationally forever to come?
I know that's right. Not forever to come, right? And we do value, again, collecting data and conducting surveys. And I think all of our members who literally complete these surveys year after year after year. And there's multiple surveys throughout the year that we send out. But because for this very reason, we are looking to track how we are performing, how we are growing. We use this information to help us figure out how we bring additional resources to close a lot of these barriers that we know exist. So we have two different surveys that we conduct annually. One is our compensation and benefits survey, which is great because it's really looking at just what you talked about, right? Women, men, educational backgrounds, geographical background, all the things as it relates to compensation and benefits. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. And then we do a survey annually around social responsibility and diversity. How are we doing there? And so what we're able to see through those surveys and through those trends that emerge is many of the barriers that have traditionally existed, I'm not going to say that they've gone away, right? But we've began to see incremental change. We have a long way to go because, to your point, this has just historically been a very male-dominated industry that's usually passed down within, my father was in the industry, I got exposed to the industry, and I'm going to go into the industry. But we also recognize now that we can do better, and we're going to do better, and we are doing better. So where we see efforts on the upside is really around recruitment and partnership expansion. A lot of our CEOs and our companies, honestly, are looking at pay equity and closing a lot of those gaps. This comes out in the survey and the results. And then the last is looking at succession planning as part of that, understanding that we can broaden our horizons and we need to start sooner with regards to building that pipeline of talent. And I will say benefits offerings, right? So we can't have the benefits and the benefits package be so prescriptive or so archaic and so it's like that it makes women not be able to be part of this industry in a way that we can show up fully in our personal lives and fully in our professional lives. So that's where we see a lot of energy and effort right now. Also board placements, we're seeing a lot more diversification. Like really women are killing it at the board level. Now, where we can continue is, continue to create, I say learning opportunities and exposure opportunities for our CEOs and our chief human resource officers. And that is something that we're really committed to doing at Nareit. We have special counsels that literally address a lot of these issues and create space for those leaders to talk amongst themselves. And having that safe space and being able to have environments where you can be transparent and honest with your peers and learn from your peers is critical. So we really try to lean in that way. And then I would just also add the need to have accountability. Like it's okay. Like let's help hold our companies and the industry accountable to some of these ambitious goals that we have and in a respectful way. That's okay. And making sure that we as an organization that is really passionate about this work and making sure that the industry looks good, that we take the time to amplify where we see businesses and companies really showing up. And we do that through our diversity impact awards. We do that through podcasts and webinars. We do that through our conferences and creating space for those who are best in class to share those efforts with their peers.
See, celebrating the wins, sharing the learnings, bringing the community forward. This is all good. This is so good.
And it's going to take time. I mean, this doesn't happen overnight. None of it.
No, well, the good stuff doesn't sometimes sadly come overnight. It's worth the investment.
It is.
Now, speaking of investment, you, in addition to all the other amazing things, somehow are still sleeping, I believe, occasionally at night, but you also are running the corporate social responsibility arm of Nareit. And, many entrepreneurs, as I already shared earlier, are looking to try to think about how they can sell to companies like yours because they are mission aligned and that they are, good corporate partners. And of course, customers are an incredible optimal way that we love for growth. It's non-dilutive. It's the best kind of alliance that can come forward. So what advice or strategies might you share for businesses joining or listening to this later today that are trying to look to sell to larger companies, larger corporate entities, and maybe even larger REITs?
Oh my goodness. And I'm like, wow, we're running out of time. So I'm going to keep this real high level. I could literally come back and have a conversation just on this alone because each of these suggestions have strategic approaches behind them. And, I tell people, or a lot of people know, I say, well, Ayris, you've raised over $60 million and you've given out nearly $300 million. Like, what was it that allowed you to raise so much money? Or what do you think about when you're making decisions on these investments? And then with that, what am I hearing from our REITs by way of those who are really looking to expand their supply chain? So I'm going to give these high-level nuggets. So the first would be, you have to understand the priorities of the company or entity in which you're and I know that sounds so basic, but you really do. You need to understand what the CEO's values are, the company's values are, what their kind of market expansion plans may be, their spend. You have to know those things so that when you're responding, you're in alignment with those priorities, the board's priorities, their stakeholders' priorities. And we're talking about, these are profit revenue generating companies. They care about a lot of things, but they have to make money for their shareholders, right? And so how are they prioritizing making money for their shareholders, and how does your company help them do that? The other is, I know this sucks, but you have to build relationships. I'm an introvert and I'm super shy. No one ever believes this, but I
Nope.
hate networking. But you have to network, and it can't be in a transactional way, and it can be exhausting and it can be tiring because you might meet. I mean, Nicola, we met, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, and it was just, we met, and it wasn't, who knew that it was going to end up being this, right? And so I think it's the relationship building and knowing who to build the appropriate relationships with within the companies you're pursuing is what matters. People get upset because they're like, I've met with so-and-so, I'll talk to so-and-so. It's like, that's not who you should have been having the conversation with. The others is that you need to make sure that you have a really clear value prop. You have to be very clear about what you do and what you don't do, and that's okay. I literally just had a conversation yesterday with a young lady, and she did not want to commit in any form or fashion in terms of what her products and services were. And I finally said to her, I said, look, you asked for this meeting. You have to tell me what it is that you're offering. Because she said, thank you for pushing me. She said, I didn't want to exclude myself from an opportunity. I said, but you were excluding yourself by being too vague. And you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're now on the hook to do something that's beyond your scope, beyond your passion, right? Or beyond even what it is that you came to want to pursue. So it's having a clear value prop, not being afraid of stating what your value prop is and what you bring to the table. And then the last one, you have to be prepared for this process. If you're pursuing a response or preparing a response to an RFP or going after procurement, you can't just show up. I'm sorry, you really have to put in the work to make sure that you're submitting the most competitive response possible. Because again, you are talking about companies that are focused on generating revenue. And I think a great advantage that we have right now, because so much of what and it's not just in commercial real estate, this is just the way it is. Businesses do business with businesses and people they like. They will continue. It's like, well, why do I want to go back to market when I know I can depend on Nicola and her team to deliver X? But part of what I say my responsibility is as an entrepreneur is to make you understand that maybe you're paying her 10 times more than you need to be, right? And so
No.
I've articulated what I'm going to bring to the table. I'm prepared and I'm responding appropriately and competitively to the RFP. And you may win, you may not, but you can't give up. And I mean, it takes time. And that's when I challenge people to say, if you're burnt out, you got to think about, is entrepreneurship really for you?
Yeah, the hard questions, but also the important ones to check in, and back to that intuition, have the chance, have the strength to learn from others, to hear from them, how they went through that process, eyes wide open as you're talking about, right? To really understand the investment that is being prioritized if you go down that pathway. And then to be able to ask the question, have time and space to go, can I do this right now? With everything else that's on my plate, can I, and should I do this right now?
I'm
And if
not
yes,
doing my business right
all
now.
in.
I'm not gonna lie.
No, I love that.
I miss her. She misses me, but yeah.
No, it's so true. And I also think that in that deep investment in relationship building, right? Because that again, back to our strength of our women entrepreneurs, is something we do really good. We do really good, right? We want to get to know the people. We want to be able to make that investment. It doesn't need to feel transactional all the time. And
Yeah.
so I think lean in. Again, back to those great words that you ushered earlier. Lean in, make that a force de jour, make that a defensibility for you and what you stand for and who you want to do business with. Because business is personal. As you started the conversation with, it just is. It's not for entrepreneurs. They are building because of something they have within them. And that doesn't leave them by a product or a service alone. It is an extension of them. That's why we say it's our babies, right? At the end of the day. All right, so now let's get to some fun questions. Thank you guys so much for putting some in and for being so active, as Ayris beautifully said in the chat today. It's been amazing to watch all the conversation and the side conversations happening. We had a wonderful one that opened it up, though, and that is, Ayris, within all the data sources that you could be looking at and all the people that you could be listening to back from those journalism days and beyond, who do you turn to? Who do you look at for information that's trustworthy in this space? What sources would you recommend?
Okay, so I am a podcast junkie because it allows me to like move around and do multiple things at once. And so I think it kind of depends on what it is that I'm focusing on or what I'm leaning into, if it's something financial, if it's something more, a lot of things at this point for me is like high level strategy. So I'm really obsessed with this podcast called Before Breakfast. It's little bits of nuggets that just help me think through in bite-sized ways, big decisions and things that I have on my plate. Usually it's 6 minutes or less. And it's Laura Vanderkam. I love her books. I just love the way she thinks. It's not super technical, but I'm able to take those nuggets and apply them in various different ways.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And thank you for bringing that to the decision making. Do you have any recommendations for entrepreneurs, broadly speaking, as to how they should think about how much information to collect before making a decision? Because we hear that a lot. Like sometimes you get into the inertia of not being able to make a decision because you're like, maybe I don't have the perfect information set to base it off of. How do you help women entrepreneurs, all entrepreneurs, sort of think through that very challenging dynamic?
I mean, yeah, I am she. She is me. I'm the overthinker. And at some point you gotta just pull the trigger. I mean, I would love to be able to give some concrete response to that, but at some point we just have to say enough is enough, because what we'll see is the very thing that we hear this all the time. We were pondering, we were going down the rabbit hole trying to make it perfect, and someone jumped out there and they did it. It wasn't perfect. And that's one of the things, again, I go back to Nareit and what I value with our CEO Steve. It needs to be a high quality of standard, but he really encourages me to get out of my way and to move forward with getting the work done. You learn from it. You apply what you learn from the first, go round, you make it better and you move forward. And so, I'm a big stickler with, time management. I'm obsessed with calendar management, and just making sure that I am limiting the distractions of social media gimmicks as opposed to some of the more traditional tools that are out there.
Yeah, I love that. And it actually segues really nicely to another question that came up, probably back to that challenge of the $500,000 number that we just sort of mic dropped earlier on in the conversation. But for entrepreneurs who are struggling to build businesses, to do so much, to manage talent, to build the company that they aspire to build, what recommendations would you have for daily activities that you personally have seen work or you personally have applied that allow you to stay true to honoring that I got to grow my revenue, to grow my business, to grow my goals, to grow the vision of the company that I want?
Mhm.
Do you do? How does it manifest for you?
Well, one of the things that I did that really helped me with pivoting to a next level professionally and even with my business in the beginning, I got a coach.
Mm.
Anyone who really knows me and works, they know I swear by my coach. I loved her so. I mean, and she wasn't just like a coach. She was really someone who challenged me to look at things in just a very different way. And so I think if there's a way to find some type of organization, if you may not have the finances to be able to invest in a coach, but organizations that are focused around entrepreneurs, and it doesn't have to just be entrepreneurs. I also, encourage entrepreneurs to look at other ways to connect with community. You'd be surprised at being a part of an organization. I'm a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm the president of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. The women who are in those organizations have diverse backgrounds. There are opportunities to expand your network. And sometimes as entrepreneurs, you need to hear from others who just aren't in this space. And again, I'm all about taking certain nuggets. I'm all about taking things that may be in this kind of vertical. How do I take it now and apply it to where I'm at? And so I encourage women to think about, other civic organizations, advocacy organizations, ways to be activated and connected to your community, beyond just being in the business, so that one, you can free up your mind and your space. Two, it's a different way to expand your network. And three, it allows for new ways to apply tactics to some of the challenges. You might find your next hire there. I've found staff through my organizations. I've found funding through my organizations. I've found community partners, and even business. So I just encourage that.
Ah,
And then I see
so
ladies
good.
dropping specific organizations.
Yeah, exactly. SBA, SBDC, SCORE. I mean, there really are
Totally.
the world of incredible organizations that want to help, that want to participate, that want to support, that want to share and learn too. Because remember, the gift of giving is the gift of receiving always when it comes to mentorship and learning, as we know. Speaking of gifts, I've got one last gift I'm going to ask of you because my friend, the time has flown as I knew it would. And that is one last takeaway. You've given us so much. I'm going to ask for yet one more. If you could leave us with one other thought that hasn't yet been shared, what's one big takeaway that you want our women entrepreneurs to be inspired and grow by today?
Um, this is gonna sound okay. I'm just gonna say it. So real quick, my daughter, she hates when I bring this up, but she was in college. I felt like it was just going on a little too long, and so I'm like, can we wrap this up? And she looked at me and she said to me, it was such an aha moment. She said, "Mom, my race, my pace." And I actually didn't even have a response to her once she said, "My race, my pace." And the reason I say that is it really is like we get so caught up in the comparison, right? Comparison can often be the thief of joy. And so I think as entrepreneurs, as business leaders, competition is good. I mean, healthy competition. We have to be competitive. We have to have a competitive edge. We have to stay abreast of the market. We have to understand what those in our lanes are also doing. But it's when you start to compare yourself in a way that brings you down this, I'm not doing it at the rate that they're doing it. I'm not doing it to the scale that they're doing it. I'm not doing, it's like, that's when it becomes kind of personal. That's when it can start to drag you down. It can burn you out. It can become discouraging. A healthy competition. Right. Yes. Now I know how to speak to those that I'm going after business, so I can talk about how I line up with my competitors. That's a professional. That can be a great kind of like, okay, I'm gonna be in this competitive spirit. But I would really encourage us to feel comfortable with moving at our pace, receiving things when we are to receive it, and being appreciative of it. You may not be 40 under 40, you may not be 30 under 30. Who cares, right? I've never made any of them. I'm about to be 50 under 50. So it's like, but it doesn't mean that you're not doing well. It doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't effective and efficient. So I would just say don't get caught up on the comparison journey, but develop healthy competitive spirit and skills.
Mm. Well, here is to the journey of joy, albeit all the challenges and obstacles we've discussed, but so grateful that you're not only creating a village of support for women entrepreneurs, inspiring us each and every day, but being there for us and with us. So as we learn, as we grow together. Ayris, this has just been such a gift to me personally and to our community. Thank you so much for your amazing time. For our friends joining, it has been a treat as well to hear from you, to be a part of this conversation with you. Please stay in touch. We will too let you know once that tool is ready for release. And in between, we wish you the happiest of holiday seasons, a very joyful new year to come, and we look forward to being a part of it as we can. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays and take care. Bye, Ayris.
Thank you.